I'd like to talk about how foods affect how I feel. We always hear about that. Um, when I was younger, I used to brag that all I ate was carbs and sugar. And it wasn't until I was about in my early 40s I developed a very painful case of gout in one of my knees. And I didn't have medical insurance, but I thought for sure I would have to call a doctor. It was so painful. But luckily, I had access to Dr. Google, and I quickly learned that I probably had gout and that there wasn't much a doctor could do about it and that it would resolve itself, um, pretty quickly. And I also learned that it's caused by red meat, shellfish, beer, um, and I had been eating an awful lot of Hamburg that I was trying to use up at the time, so I was pretty sure that's why I developed it. So I started looking into different foods. Because of the gout, I wasn't eating beef, and I realized that saturated fat really affected me. It really weighed me down. It uh, made my muscles heavy. And so once I cut down on saturated fat, it made a big difference in how my muscles felt. And so because of that, I looked into other foods. And I'm sure my age had something to do with it. Um, because when I was younger, it didn't seem like food really affected me. But I learned a lot about inflammatory foods and anti inflammatory foods. So, the biggest change I made was that I started cooking a lot more with olive oil than vegetable oil, where vegetable oil is an inflammatory food, olive oil is an anti inflammatory food. And what that means is it just causes general inflammation throughout your body, your muscles, in joints. Um, so when I cut down on these inflammatory foods, my muscles stopped aching, my joints stopped aching. I was really blown away. So it really gave me incentive to keep at it. So I found substitutes for the foods high in saturated fat first, like butter. I tried all the butter substitutes on the market and I found that Brummel and Brown's was by far the best. I also actually like it better on cold bread than real butter. It's lighter, but it had the right flavor. It just doesn't work on warm bread because there's yogurt in it, um, in place of some of the fat, and it just makes it soggy. But it works great on potatoes and other vegetables. I use that all the time. The replacement for Hamburg was ground turkey. Ground turkey, if you when you use it in chili or in any highly tacos, any highly seasoned meat, it's really hard to tell the difference. If you make a turkey burger, put bacon, tomatoes, lettuce. The more you put on it, the more it will camouflage the flavor. It didn't take me long to get used to turkey burgers, turkey, ground turkey, and now I don't even like beef anymore. Um, Instead of steak, I started eating pork chops. Cream in my coffee, I could not find a good substitute. So what I did was I cut down dramatically. I cut down on the amount of cream I put in my coffee, but it was just, I enjoyed it too much to completely cut it out. Cheese, I couldn't find a good replacement for that, so I just use less cheese, but I still eat cheese. I want to mention too, bacon flavors. You don't want to eat a lot of it, of course, but it adds a lot of flavor to anything. I chop up bacon and fry it, of course, but I'll add it to rice, I'll add it to so many dishes, and it adds a lot of flavor. Just don't eat a lot of it. Um, cane sugar. Uh, Cane sugar is an inflammatory food. Now, I'm a sugar addict, so that was going to be tough, but I just replaced it with natural sugars. The sugar in fruit is good. I always laughed when they called raisins nature's candy. I thought that was ridiculous. Now I really, it it's, now I consider raisins very sweet, and it's like candy to me. I eat honey. I'll add honey to recipes, or my oatmeal, my yogurt, I'll add honey to. Now, when I am making cookies or muffins, instead of using cane sugar, I boil down maple syrup. The, you're supposed to boil it to like 235. Um, I just started boiling it for 35 minutes. And what you get is a candy consistency, not a maple sugar. That would be too hard to process into maple sugar, but it's like a maple candy, and that's what I use in my recipes now. If you microwave it a little bit to soften it up, you definitely want to soften it up before you add it to the oil and the other ingredients. And that's something I learned, that you definitely want to soften it up before you start trying to incorporate it. So the sugars I eat are natural sugars. I haven't completely cut out cane sugar. I just rarely eat it, and I don't need to because I have substitutes. The last thing is gluten. Now, there's a lot of controversy around gluten, cutting it out, and people will make fun of you if you cut out gluten and don't need to. But it is an inflammatory food, and gluten was something that bothered me because of another condition I have, which I'll make another post about that, because it's cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, and it applies to MS because a lot of doctors are now prescribing cannabinoids for MS, and that's great, but doctors don't realize that you can have too much cannabinoids and get CHS, and then you can never have cannabinoids again. And that's the saddest thing, is when medical patients can't use it anymore. They finally found something that works and they can't use it anymore. And most doctors are not aware of CHS. But when I did have it, gluten was affecting me and just making me feel crappy. And I started making non-gluten blend flours to do my cooking, and just trying not, you can't find good non-gluten bread. I just don't eat gluten very often, but the biggest amazing thing about gluten is when I don't eat gluten, I don't get hungry between meals. It's I don't. I absolutely, when I wake up in the morning and I'm hungry, I think back and I ate gluten the night before. But other than that, I don't. And then one more thing I want to mention is my nightly drink. I used to drink Diet Coke every night. You know, you sit down at the end of the day. Some people drink wine. I'm not a big alcohol drinker. I used to drink Diet Coke at night, and I wanted to drink something healthier, so I would mix cranberry juice with diet ginger ale. I did that for a while, and then I wanted to completely cut out all soda, so I now drink half cranberry juice and half iced green tea. I make up a batch of green tea with honey and put it in the fridge and mix those together, and it, I, it's a great nightly drink. I enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed anything else. And I guess that's it. But especially if you're older, food definitely affects the way you feel.